The following program is classified as PG. It is not suitable for viewing by persons under 15 years of age without guidance from a parent or guardian.
Good evening, I'm Mahieash Johnney. It's 7 o'clock and this is the State of the Nation.
Dr. Doom and the naysayers. The IMF and World Bank supporters Fitch Ratings and now Standard & Poor makes another poor decision by irresponsibly downgrading Sri Lanka at a pandemic time. The same organizations that said Sri Lanka would default its debt commitments refuse to acknowledge the progress made thus far and the plans ahead. What's the truth behind this?
2022 we will reach some of the key milestones.
Get in line or get out of the way. Former President Maithripala Sirisena and his SLFP supporting parliamentarians continue to make irresponsible statements showcasing a rift between the ruling party and its coalition members. Is this healthy for the country? Or are these constructive criticism that would help develop better governance? And lights off. Sri Lanka has been experiencing a power shortage for over a decade. When dry weather prevails, they say no water to generate power. And now these days, turbine malfunction or no fuel. All in all, Sri Lankans continue to remain in the dark, literally and figuratively. Tonight, we bring these issues to the light.
Everybody to exercise extreme caution.
That and much more next on State of the Nation.
Good evening once again, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me on this brand new program where we ask the question, what's the state of our nation as of now? Now, before we get on with the show, the first question that needs clarity is why we need a program to talk about the state of our nation. Well, as you know, I am a conservative talk show host. In addition to this program, I host another political program on this channel, which I'm sure you would have seen, called Get Real, where we try and provide a different viewpoint to what's being said in the mainstream media. Our show format only allows us to talk about one subject a week due to its weekly nature. And we do not live in a world where only one issue takes precedence weekly. So hence, to provide a different viewpoint to what's been said in the mainstream media, we've begun our quest to inform you about the other side concerning the state of our nation. So the other question, why is it essential that another point of view is presented? Let's take this example to explain that to you. How do you feel about this country when you watch the news these days? Shamed, distressed, worthless, angered, frustrated? Don't worry. We think the same. We feel the same, especially me. It is a constant battle with our newsroom daily, asking this simple question: why are you projecting so much negativity onto the public forum? Now, the simple answer we get from the newsroom is that, well, this is what's happening in the country. Now, there lies my conundrum. Is this what's really happening in our country? Let's take the gas issue as an example. So these days, we see in almost every bulletin in the country showcasing gas queues in certain parts of the country. Every time our reporters goes there and asks these people who are standing in these queues a question, we have a plethora of people who are willing to give a voice cut saying how bad this and how bad that is. Please don't get me wrong. There was indeed a gas issue in this country. Gas-related explosions took place all across the country, resulting in a loss of a Sri Lankan life. Now, that is a problem. So what really happened? Now, that's the question we need to ask. Now, we know that due to an erroneous decision by officials at Litrogas to change the composition of the gas cylinder is the main reason for this debacle. This was done without testing whether the new gas composition would be compatible with the existing cylinders. For what purpose? Was it greed, stupidity, incompetence? We can argue till the cows come home, but it did occur. So an erroneous decision by officials at Litrogas ended in this unwarranted issue. And we must hold our leaders accountable and make sure that they take action against these idiots at Litro. Last week, the president fired the existing chairman and appointed a new person. Hopefully, that'll be the start of accountability. So right now, as the supply chains are replenished and time is taken to rectify the matter, we see gas queues. Is that the accurate picture? If we look at the queues projected on National News Daily, it's either in 4 or 5 locations. And in those locations, we can safely say that around 50 to 100 people are standing in these queues. So let's be generous and say that there are a dearth of approximately 1,000 households not having gas to buy in those various locations which is being portrayed in the news. Now, based on from all we've seen from one particular news story, we see that there are queues. And let's put that figure to around 1,000. Now, mind you, this is when the stock is being replenished and distributed. Litro Gas has over 4 million customers island-wide. It distributes approximately 3 million gas cylinders a month. If you compare the people standing in these queues, they only calculate to 0.000033333333, and there are, I think, around 5 more threes. That's the percentage. So the obvious question we need to raise is, does that 0.000333 and so on percentage standing in line, which is fueled and showcased and highlighted by the mainstream media daily, really represent the whole of Sri Lanka, and thus far asking the very pertinent question, is the accurate picture across the island is being portrayed? And that's why we want to give you the other side to the bullshit we see on mainstream media daily. All right, let's get on to the stories we are focusing on tonight. Now, right before Christmas last year, our educated friends at Fitch Ratings gave Sri Lanka, a developing country that's trying its level best to get out of a global pandemic situation, trying our level best to keep our people alive, safe and sound, with free education, healthcare, and even the life-saving vaccine still going on uninterrupted. Fitch Ratings gave us a real gift, downgrading this nation according to their bullshit standard. So what they're saying is this country's economic outlook is bleak. Be careful, potential investors. Well, hang on. How do you get out from a crappy economy to a good one? Obviously, doing good business, right? And then how do you increase your FDIs, foreign direct investments? Well, asking foreign investors to come and invest. Now, hang on a minute. Organizations like Fitch Ratings, Standard & Poor, mind you, an abysmal choice of word selection for a title of a financial organization, poor, and other so-called rating bodies are telling the potential investors, the one that would help us to get out of this current crisis, not to invest because it's bad. It's bad because we don't have enough investors doing business here. But don't invest because it's bad. At times you wonder who comes up with this genius stuff. It's like having coitus repeatedly, hoping your virginity will return, isn't it? We have to ask why organizations like these keeps pushing us down the gutter when we are already having a troubled time. Instead of doing their part to help us, they come up with bogus visions and missions and continues to do the exact opposite. Instead of helping, just putting us down. So let's ask the obvious question, why? Along with these, what's the other chanting of prayer that's been thrown out by the opposition these days? You know, the ones that was in power from 2015 to 2019, who took most erroneous and ill-fortunate economic decisions that resulted in us being in this state?
You have to talk with the international financial institutions, the international monetary agencies. You have to ask fresh financial assistance program.
කෙටිකාලීනව මේ සියලු ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කිරීම සඳහා ආයෝජකයන්ට කතා කරන්න වෙනවා. ආයෝජකයන්ට කතා කරන්න යම්කිසි අපිට ඒ අවස්ථාවක් සලසන්න ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා.
Since there is no other alternative, we must go to the IMF, negotiate with the IMF that we have sufficient money for the next 2 years.
You see, little by little, things are falling to their place. From one end, these global bodies are pushing us to be at a beggar state so that we will go crawling back to the IMF or the World Bank. As long as we take loans after loans from these institutions, magically and overnight, our economic conditions will improve, according to Fitch, Standard and Poor. As long as these global financial bodies can hold us by our neck and keep shaking us according to their whims and needs, they will showcase that everything is hunky-dory in Sri Lanka. As you know, this government has opted for a self-regulated, self-powered economic strategy that pushes all of us as Sri Lankans to do our part as one nation. Well, to number one, to get out of this colossal debt we have. And number two, be financially independent, mainly because financial independence does translate to a secured nation. And when we try to do that, you can very quickly see the Western lords of this country getting angry. It's similar to Master Malfoy getting mad at Dobby for trying to break away and be free. Fitch, Standard and Poor needs to wake up from their poor state and consider these simple facts. In 2021, Sri Lanka's GDP grew 4.3% and 12.3% for Q1 and Q2, quarter 1 and quarter 2, while quarter 3 contracted by only 1.5%. Mind you, this is at a time when the whole world is going through a pandemic. Government has already made arrangement to settle the $500 million international sovereign bond maturing on 18th of January in 2 days' time. The central bank governor very confidently said that is sorted. And even last year, we paid all our debts. Sri Lanka has never defaulted for over 73 years. The central bank governor has rejected IMF bailout as of 12 January 2022. Now, with regard to tourism, which is one of the major income earners for Sri Lanka, tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka in the month of December of last year is closer to 90,000. Total number of tourists to Sri Lanka in 2021 is closer to 200,000 individuals. Now, that is actually a good rate compared to the situation that the entire world was in. The highest number of tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka was back in 2018, 2.3 million. Now, that is the target rate. We want to go way beyond that. Airports are coming in. Everything is being planned to do that. And hopefully, if we can keep this trajectory the way it is, we can absolutely get to that point. Sri Lanka, from an export point of view, in 2021, from the rubber product sector, has achieved $1 billion in income. $1 billion. And the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, the EDB, intends to increase it to $3 billion by 2025. That's in 3 years' time. Tea export earnings totaled to around 62.2 billion rupees, recording an increase in revenue of around 5.4 billion rupees compared to around 56.8 billion rupees in 2020. Well, to understand why the heck are these agencies still keep us hammering when we are down, we spoke to the governor of the central bank, Ajit Cabral, on this and asked him, I said, what's going on? This is what he had to say. Listen in.
As a central bank, we are disappointed that S&P had decided to downgrade Sri Lanka's rating from CCC plus to CCC at a time when the central bank has categorically stated that the next bond issue would be paid, and we have already given to the markets a statement as to how we are going to make payments for the future. So, in that context, we are not only disappointed, we have certain suspicions as well as to what the reasoning for such a downgrade has been. We have seen the various rating agencies downgrading Sri Lanka at a time when assurances have been given and the payments have been made on time. Every single payment has been made on time, every single debt servicing has been made on time, And in that context, we must say that we do not agree with the rating agency's statements, and we have contested it, but we want to assure all investors that Sri Lanka will honour its debts, notwithstanding the ratings that have been enunciated by these agencies, and we want to assure them once again that all payments will be made on time. At the same time, Sri Lanka has honoured its debts since independence without any default whatsoever, and we are very proud of that, and we would continue to service the debt without any blemishes at all. Sri Lanka is sad, and as a central bank we are perturbed that investors have unnecessarily suffered as a result of these downgrades, and we hope that these agencies will act more responsibly in the future to recognize the steps taken by the central bank and the government to ensure that all investors are protected and safeguarded and paid on time.
That was the governor of the central bank, Ajit Niwad Kabral. All right, let's take a short commercial break. On the other side, things heats up inside the government. No, not in a seductive way. This is the state of the nation. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. This is the state of the nation. Now, last week, this clown cracked this joke.
ලෝකයේ සලකන්නේ රටේ රාජ්‍ය කරන අයගේ මූණ දිහා බලලා අනතුරට නෙවෙයි මම ලෝකයේ දිනාගත්තේ ලෝකයට පෙන්නපු ආණ්ඩුව කරන ප්‍රතිපත්තිය මම පෙන්නුවේ ලෝකයේ මාස් සමග එකට එකතු වුණේ 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනය නිසා.
Say what? What's going on now? Former President Maithripala Sirisena, who was our Commander-in-Chief from 2015 to 2019, yes, the same period, Port City project was stopped. If it was there, half of our dollar crisis would have not existed right now. Yes, the same person who led our security forces to be treated like third-class citizens and allowed a terrorist to bomb churches and kill innocent Sri Lankans. Yes, the same president who led the economy tank and said that the Queen greeted him without wearing gloves. Oh wait, can you forget the 20 rupee ballpoint pen drama? Oh my God. Remember, right? He's not a president of privilege. He wants to sign in with a normal ballpoint pen. The drama that was created during that time. Yep, that president who also turned his back on his long-term friend and party colleague to sleep with the enemy is now slipping back into his old ways, where he's trying to once again do the Apekala Tachita Tatagian act. Why? Because President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fired former Minister Susil Premajayantha for criticizing government policy while enjoying all ministerial privileges. So is this right? Is this how a former leader of a country, a party, a senior political figure should act when the nation is going through a tough time, when we really need to showcase unity and strength? Joining me now is political analyst and other Derana contributor Malinda Senaviratna. Malinda, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Now, former President Maithripala Sirisena continues to stay in the government and criticize the government. What do you think? Should the President and the Prime Minister entertain this or ask the SLFP, please pack up your bags and leave the coalition and then go criticize from outside?
Thank you. Now, when two parties, especially two political entities, come into an agreement, they typically sign a memorandum of understanding, and that specifies what is okay and what is not. And if someone violates it, what actions should be taken or could be taken, usually written into that agreement. So in this situation, if the agreement has been violated, then it is up to those parties who have co-signed that agreement to decide on a course of action. What that should be is up to them to decide. But if I was in some agreement with someone and that person has violated it, I do not see why he or she should be in that agreement anymore. That agreement ceases to be effective. So if, for example, Maithripala Sirisena and the SLFP decide that they find this government intolerable, first of all, the question should be asked, why should they be in the government? Then they should leave. And from the other party, the president or the prime minister or whoever makes decisions for the SLPP, they should decide what course of action they should take. They should ask them to leave, or they have to suffer these allegations and criticisms, and because perhaps they feel it is the better course of action. But that's up to them to decide. But we have to keep this in mind. There are two major parties in this country, that is the SLPP and the SJB. There used to be the SLFP and the UNP, but they have been rebranded. So the SLFP needs to understand that the people have essentially turned them into a, maybe because of their actions, into a minor party. So they are not going to lead any coalition at into the reasonable future. They might not even be the junior major party in any such coalition. I think if JVP and the UNP decide to go with the SJB, the SLFP will be a distant third or fourth even. So what the political implications of these kinds of things is something that Maithripala Sirisena and the SLFP should evaluate.
Now, with these current events, in your opinion, are we seeing the formation of an unstable government right now, just like the good governance debacle?
Well, political instability can occur for a variety of reasons. We have to understand that this parliament is just a few months more than 1 year old. So there's political stability there because we are not going to see elections at any in the near future. And you can't really compare. The Yahapalana coalition was much more messier kind of arrangement. The two major parties were from day one, bickering and battling each other, and the SLFP now is not the SLFP then. That needs to be understood. And the SLFP UNP arrangement, there was greater parity of status than the SLFP SLPP. SLFP is just a minor entity in this ruling coalition. And the numbers, what kind of majority did the Yahapalana government have and the UNP? How many members did they have in parliament, and how many does the SLPP have right now? Of course, there can be defections, crossovers and all those things, but let's not speculate on that. That is not going to be very useful.
All right, thank you very much, Malinda Seniviratna, the Derana contributor and political analyst, for giving me his take on the current break between the SLFP and the SLPP. Let's take a short commercial break. This is the State of the Nation. Welcome back, everyone. This is the State of the Nation. Now, the other matter at hand, the power crisis. Darn those electricity people. These days, power is running out because they don't have enough fuel to generate power. But on the other hand, our dependency on fossil fuel and hydro energy is very much questionable. Now, since 1996, or even before that, Sri Lanka has had annual power cuts. It's either related to a strike by the employees of the Ceylon Electricity Board or weather-related matter. When there is no rain, power cut. When there is no fuel, power cut. And now joining the party are the turbines. The turbines are acting out. Now, in recent times, you might remember back in 2016, there were scheduled power cuts of over 1.5 hours, mainly because there was not enough hydroelectricity supply to the grid due to dry weather. So whenever there's a power issue, people of this country start talking about the need for a solution. But no sooner than the lights come back on, we go back to watching Netflix and having a good time. With the global conversation on the retiring of fossil fuel taking center stage, Sri Lanka also needs to have this conversation very seriously, because I really don't want to have another power cut. There are two sides to this story. First, Sri Lanka is one of the few countries that has let the states have complete autonomy in power generation. We do have a pretty small number of private power generators. Still, they are so minor, they use the same distribution grid to give power to homes across the island, which is owned by the state. And mind you, it's vital that we have that control in the state. But right now, with these issues, Sri Lanka has to really rethink its position on energy and power and the sources we can and should harness it from. Since fossil fuel is no longer a credible option, the world is moving towards renewable energy, meaning solar power, wind power and hydropower. Sri Lanka is blessed with all those areas. There is enough sunlight to generate solar, being in an island, enough wind power, and the existing hydropower. So why are we not getting this right? Now, the answer to the current power crisis are to be found from analyzing historical power demand data. The Ceylon Electricity Board have a total of installed power plants that could cater to power demands of excess of 2,500 megawatts. But we are not utilizing even half of the installed capacity during 12 hours of the day. We as a country operate costly power sources to generate power during peak demand periods. However, suppose Sri Lanka could implement a proper energy generation, storage and utilization system that stores considerable energy during the daytime and deliver the surge in demand for a period of maximum 6 hours in the evening. In that case, we do not need any additional power plants. Now, what does that mean? It means during the daytime, Sri Lankans consume very little power. And power generating plants can still continue to generate at the same capacity they do at any given time and store that power in an energy storage facility, which is at dearth right now. Then during the night time, which is the peak time, we can utilize that stored energy and distribute it. So our systems are not running on overdrive to meet the demand. So the obvious question to ask is, why aren't we doing this right now? Why aren't we storing power? Sri Lankan power generation system has been in crisis in meeting the peak power electricity demand in the country for more than 2 decades. It's not a problem that started yesterday or day before, last month or last year. The consumer pattern in the country has greatly attributed to this problem, meaning that we are developing so fast, our grid cannot catch up with the demand. The Ceylon Electricity Board, being the front runner of power generation, transmission and distribution in Sri Lanka, believe that they could quickly solve the issue by setting up some additional power plants in the near future. However, an independent study of the daily power demand clearly shows that Sri Lanka has adequate power plants to meet consumer demands, at least for the next few years. The study further highlights that the gap between power demand and power generation during peak hours in the country could be easily solved utilizing decentralized energy storage system. What it means is we are not storing the electricity we generate during the time that there is no peak. So we have not looked into it. Hence, the CEB must conduct a detailed analysis of energy storage requirement at each primary substation in Sri Lanka and review the chances of optimizing the operation of existing power plants and delay any significant capital investment into new generating solutions until the lowest energy demand develop further for the country to invest in suitable capacity thermal power station.
We will increase contribution of renewable energy sources to 70% of national energy needs by 2030 and are taking steps to phase out use of fossil fuels. Sri Lanka is also proud to be a co-lead of the Global Energy Compact for no new coal power. Climate change affects all nations, but disproportionately impacts developing island nations. Developing nations that take bold steps towards climate change mitigation and adaptation deserve extensive support. It is essential that the world's largest emitters of greenhouse gases fulfill their national commitments and assist developing nations navigate through the climate crisis.
You know, it's worth noting, I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but the world could be powered many times over by solar if you had enough battery capacity to pair with it. Many times, like...
The world? I mean, obviously California, where you're based, but in Europe? Can you really say that, in Europe?
1,000. It's literally true. The amount of energy that reaches the Earth from the sun is staggeringly high. We have this enormous fusion generator in the sky that is lobbing out vast amounts of energy. And I'm talking about just using land area. I mean, it's really amazing. In fact, here's a little tidbit. If you take a nuclear plant and you took its current output and compared that to just taking solar panels and putting solar panels on the area used by the nuclear power plant, because these typically have a big keep-out zone, of about maybe 5 kilometers or thereabouts, where building houses, and dense, any kind of dense office or housing space. Usually, people don't want to do that near a nuclear power plant. So there's quite a big keep-out zone, and when you factor the keep-out zone into account, the solar panels put on that area would typically generate more power than the nuclear power plant.
Yes, and that's not a calculation just done by you.
I know, it's very easy to do. So
here's a question from the audience then.
If I may sort of just do just a tidbit of math. The
collective maths, 900 people, mental maths.
1 square kilometer is 1 million square meters. And there's 1 kilowatt per square meter of solar energy. So on 1 square kilometer, there is a gigawatt of solar energy.
With you so far. With you so far.
So, I mean, if you wanted, I mean, you can get.
And ergo, the nuclear power station doesn't give you the same. Is that the calculation?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay, so here,
yes, but like you could power the entire United States with about, let's say, 150 to 200 square kilometers of solar panels. The entire United States. Take a corner of Utah. Not much going on there. I've been there. I would invest heavily in renewables. Now, I mean, that may sound like an obvious thing to do, and there are some companies that are doing it. Total made a huge investment in sun power, and I think that that investment will pay good dividends in the future. But I think it's important to look at renewables and take it really seriously. I mean, don't just put like the C or D team on it, put the A team on it.
Well, that is a look at the state of our nation. This program will return next Sunday at 7 p.m. with a fresh look at the events that shape next week. I'm Mahieash Johnney. I'll see you again tomorrow on Get Real, where my guest is Governor of the Central Bank, Ajit Niwad Cabral. So more conversation about Sri Lanka's economy and its future. So make sure that you join me on Get Real at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Remember, always stay positive and test negative. From all of us here at Derana 24, have a good day.